It's almost like you're always going to be on a seesaw with somebody in a long-term relationship. Ups, downs, balance. But neither one of you will get off the seesaw. That's what it takes. Because if one of you gets off, the whole thing breaks. Loving someone is letting them be themselves.
100%.
And when I stumbled onto this, Chris and I have been through hell and back. And he is my most favorite thing about life. And there is something about let them that is a profound act of love. Because in my mind, when I think about love, I think love is two things. I think it's consideration. So having someone else in mind. Like literally, if you make a cup of coffee for somebody and you put in the oat milk, because that's what they like, that's an act of love because you have consideration. When I slice the cardboard box and flatten it, I have Chris in mind. And the second part of love for me is admiration, which is the ability to see something in someone else that you admire. And you asked, how do you go the distance? I think a long-term successful relationship requires two things. It requires two people who want it to work. And that's an important thing. Because if you look at any relationship that breaks up, whether it's divorce or a breakup, there is a moment looking back where at least one of the people
didn't want it to work.
Yeah. And the second component is that you're both willing to do the work to make it work. It's almost like you're always going to be on a seesaw with somebody in a long-term relationship. Ups, downs, balance. But neither one of you will get off the seesaw. That's what it takes. Because if one of you gets off, the whole thing breaks.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's really important to learn how to let someone be who they are, because I think it's a huge act of love. And one of the cool things about it for me, and it's not so much with Chris, but it's with other family members that have had very challenging issues or challenging personality styles, is that I've always made it my job to make people happy and make sure nobody's disappointed, and then I get upset. And so
I know that feeling.
Right?
I know that feeling.
And when you let them be who they are, you're actually holding space for two things to be true. Because somebody can be deeply disappointed in you or something that you've done, and they can still love you.
100%, yeah.
And a lot of us don't know that. But when you let someone be disappointed, and if you just take that example, because so many of us are motivated by guilt or we don't want to let people down, if you have a business partnership and they want you to come to some meeting or come give a speech and it just doesn't work and they're disappointed, isn't that a good thing? Doesn't that mean they want you there?
Right.
And we think we've done something wrong. No, you've actually done something great because you have a relationship where somebody wants you there. So let them be disappointed.
Sure.
But then do the second part, let me remind myself of my values. And I don't bend over backwards just to make sure other people aren't disappointed. I just let them be disappointed, and I remind myself that I need to act in a way and spend my time in a way that actually supports the things that are priorities for me. And if I value, for example, family, and this is another very important thing because so many people are motivated by guilt. I used to be deeply motivated by making sure that, oh my God, if I felt guilty because I'm working too much or didn't see my parents or whatever, and then I'd change everything and then I'd still feel guilty because it wasn't quite enough. Don't ever do something because you feel guilty. When you change your plans and you go home to see your parents because you feel guilty, you just made your parents the villain.
Because you'll resent it.
Yes. And because you're making it a thing you have to do. If you let them be disappointed and then you come back to yourself and you say, okay, well, let me drop into my values. And for me, my dad's 80 this year, and I'm lucky if I got 10 more holidays with him. And so I don't make the time to see them because I want him to think I'm a good daughter. I make the time to see him because it makes me know I'm a good daughter, because I value it. And the other thing that I love about Let Them, especially in challenging political times, is there are very good people in your life that have political opinions that you just cannot explain.
Yeah.
And it's a deeply personal issue for everybody around what crosses a line. But there is space when you say, let them, for someone else to have a belief that you don't understand, and for you to not be emotionally charged by it, and then for you to come back to your power and say, let me decide how much time and energy I pour into this relationship. Let me decide the role that family plays. Let me decide if I'm going to take the time to step in their shoes and try to understand how they have come to this belief. Because one of the other things that I've learned, and especially in researching this book, is that our brains are very interesting, because when somebody has a different opinion than you, or they tell you something you don't want to hear, they've scanned your brain. This is research from Dr. Tali Sharot. Your brain literally turns off the listening part when somebody is telling you something that you don't want to hear. And so by yelling at each other or arguing about things, or I don't understand how you could possibly, that doesn't do anything but create this silent distance between people. When you let people have their beliefs and then you remind yourself, let me decide what I value, and let me decide what energy I'm going to pour into what, and let me decide if I want to keep the space in this relationship open. Because the other thing that I was getting super wrong in relationships, Lewis, is, I know that I have to push myself because I'm lazy and stubborn and doubtful and anxious like everybody else, right? I don't want to do the hard. So I'm like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I push myself. So naturally, I push everybody else. And our brains are not only wired for control, but we move toward what's easy, which is why you sit on the couch instead of exercising, because it's easy. And we move away from what feels hard. And if you're a parent, you're stomping up the stairs because your kid's not motivated and you hear the Xbox going, do you think studying is easy for that kid? No. That's why they're not doing it. And when you come stomping up the stairs to open up the door and be like, are you studying?
Yelling at them, yeah.
Yeah, do you think that's motivating?
No.
You just create more resistance to the change that you want.
Yeah.
Now, you can't make someone change, but I never said you couldn't influence them.
Sure.
So through letting somebody be who they are, and then coming back to let me approach this in a different way. If I know I can't change this person, and I know that the hardest working person is the person who's struggling. I mean, people that are fat, they know they are. They know they are. People that are unhealthy, they know they are. And they're in tension with themselves. Of course, I choose to believe that everybody wants to be thriving. I choose to believe that everybody wants to feel good about themselves. I choose to believe that, if you're broke, I've been broke. I knew it. I knew I wanted to change my relationship with money. In fact, I needed your new book, Lewis. Where were you 14 years ago?
Sure.
People know when they're not living up to their potential. They are already actively in tension with themselves. They don't need pressure from you because it just creates more weight and shame.
Thank you for watching this video. If you want more inspiring clips like this, make sure to click right here to subscribe and click right here to watch that next video that is specific to support you in your life.